Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church. I got some more random thoughts to share this week. I've been doing it already and I'm going to continue. And today I'm in Romans chapter 5. And I want to look at verses 10 and 11. Here's what we read. Since our friendship with God was restored by the death of his Son, while we were still enemies, we will certainly be saved through the life of his Son. So now we can rejoice in our wonderful new relationship with God because our Lord Jesus Christ has made us friends of God. Okay, there's some really good stuff here. Let me see if I can share some thoughts that work out. Since our friendship with God was restored by the death of his Son. Now, a couple of things here. First, it was restored, meaning that it had been broken, meaning that our friendship with God had been altered in some fashion. Now, I think, and I've shared it some, and I'll keep sharing it at least in my church on Sundays from time to time, I think the key to understanding God is found in Genesis 1 and 2. Because that's who God demonstrated himself to be before the fall, before sin entered the world. Now, grant you, Jesus came along after that and explained how we're supposed to live in this sinful world. But prior to the fall in Genesis, the relationship between God and his creation and God and man was perfect. Now, man messed it up. It wasn't God's fault, it was man's fault. And God gave man and you and me the opportunity to decide for ourselves. And in those days, they decided the wrong way. And sin came into the world. And ever since, all kinds of ugly stuff and bad stuff has happened. You can't blame it on anybody but ourselves. We are responsible. Maybe we don't want to hear that, but we are. So, our relationship with God was changed. It was ruptured. It was one from being a friend to being an outcast. And if you look at the history of the Bible, from that time in Genesis up until the time of Jesus, however many thousands of years that was, the relationship between God and man was frayed. Oh, there were times when it was close, but only for special people at special moments, never for lifetimes. And so it says here, and I'll read this part again. Our friendship with God was restored by the death of his Son while we were still his enemies. You see, when Jesus dies, we are still enemies to God. Our sin still rules. My sin and your sin. What is sin? Anything that causes a gap between you and God. I know some people like to talk about sin in terms of what you wear. It's so much more than that. It's not even that very much. It's what we think and what we talk about and how we act, how we treat others, how we respond to things. All of that stuff pulls us away from God. But when Jesus comes, it says here, that pulling away was restored. And we became friends again. It says here, while we were still his enemies, he did that. We didn't do it. I didn't do it. You didn't do it. I couldn't have done it. God did it for me and for you. And this was accomplished by the death of his son Jesus. And that's another long, long story. Don't have time to go into details here. It says, while we were still enemies, we will certainly be saved through the life of his son. Even though we were separated and could not bridge that gap, God did it for us so that that gap can forever be dissipated. So then he goes on to say, so now, if you've chosen to walk with God, now let me say this, there are a lot of people who have given their lives to the Lord and they don't act like it. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why they're doing it. I can't imagine taking that pathway. And sometimes they just stray and didn't mean to and find themselves later on way, way, way out in the field. But he says, because that friendship has been restored, we can now rejoice in this new relationship because Jesus has made us friends of God. I don't like that phrase. I use it a lot. I don't know that it's one that many people focus much on. But can you imagine being God's friend? Now, I hope you have a friend. I guess there's some people that don't. But think of your closest friend, what you would do for them, what they do for you, how you talk to them, how they talk to you, how you spend time together, how you just want to be around them. That relationship is just a smidgen of an indication of the relationship God and you and I can have because we are his friend. He considered us his friend. You see the difference here? God reaches out and puts us in a whole different relationship than what we were before. And in this new relationship, we don't have to wonder. We don't have to worry. We don't have to be anxious. Oh, I know people do that. I tell myself many times, hey, John, look, you don't have to be worried. I'd like to know the answer for next year today, but I'm not wise enough to do that. Only God is. And I don't have to worry about it, whatever the result is. That comes out of this relationship of being friends with God and God being my friend and me being his friend. And that's what he wants to offer to you today, tomorrow, the next day, and forever. I hope you know this. I hope you've experienced this. If you haven't, well, you can. It's not that hard. Just ask him to come into your life. Well, I hope you'll think about this, and I hope you have a great day. If you have a need or a prayer concern, let us know. We'll do whatever we can as fast as we can to help meet it. Thanks so much for listening. God bless you. I'll talk to you again.